them that energy is everywhere. It's in the air, in the floor, and in our bodies. He realized that if you could match the vibration of the energy in the room to the tube in his hand, the light would turn on. Tesla spent his life proving that the universe is not made of stuff. It is made of waves. He once said that if you want to find the secrets of the universe, you have to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Think of a guitar string. If you pluck it, it vibrates. If you pluck it harder, it vibrates faster and makes a higher sound. Everything in your room, your chair, your phone, even your fingernails, is vibrating right now. They just vibrate so fast that they look like they are sitting still. Tesla's big secret was that thoughts are also vibrations. When you have a thought, your brain sends out a tiny electrical pulse. It's like a small radio station inside your skull, broadcasting a signal out into the world. If your radio station is sending out a signal of fear, it's going to pick up other stations that feel like fear. But if you can change your frequency, you can change what you catch. Sarah's morning radio. Sarah Jenkins sat on the L train in Chicago, her shoulder pressed against the cold glass of the window. The train rattled and squeaked as it moved toward the city center. It was a Tuesday, the same kind of day Leo and Arthur had faced. For years, Sarah's internal radio had been stuck on a station she didn't like. As the train moved, she watched the gray buildings go by and her mind started its usual broadcast. I'm going to be late. The boss is going to be cranky. I have that mountain of paperwork. I'll probably get a headache by noon. She caught herself. She remembered the idea of the radio dial. She realized that by thinking these things, she was tuning her brain to a bad day before it even started. She was like a person walking into a party and deciding everyone there was mean before she even said hello. She closed her eyes and tried something new. She didn't try to imagine winning the lottery. That felt too big and fake. Instead, she just tried to find a frequency that felt a little bit better. She thought about the painting she had started over the weekend. She imagined the smell of the blue paint and the way the brush felt against the canvas. For about 30 seconds, her chest felt a little lighter. The rattle of the train didn't seem quite so loud. She wasn't creating a new world yet, but she was changing the way her brain was looking at the old one. She was adjusting the dial, trying to move away from the static of her stress and toward a song that made her want to dance. She noticed a man sitting across from her. Usually, she would have thought he looked grumpy. But in her new frequency, she noticed he was wearing a very bright, silly tie with tiny ducks on it. She felt a small smile tug at her mouth. Because she had shifted her internal state, her brain was now allowed to see the duck tie instead of just the grumpy man. This is the first step of how the brain shapes what we call reality. The sled in the snow. To understand why Sarah's brain was so used to tuning to stress, we have to look at how the brain is built. Imagine a hill covered in deep, fresh snow. You take a sled to the top and slide down. You can go any way you want the first time. But the second time you go down, your sled is likely to fall into the tracks you made the first time. By the 10th time, those tracks are deep grooves. It becomes very hard to steer the sled anywhere else. The sled naturally wants to follow the path that is already there. Your brain works the same way. It is made of billions of tiny cells called neurons. Every time you have a thought, a little spark of electricity jumps from one cell to another. If you have the same thought over and over, like, I'm not good enough or life is hard, those cells form a very strong connection. They wire together. This is called neuroplasticity. For a long time, doctors thought that once you were an adult, your brain was like a piece of dry clay. It couldn't change. But now we know that the brain is more like Play-Doh. You can reshape it at any age. When Sarah sat on the train and chose to think about her painting instead of her paperwork, she was trying to steer her sled out of the deep old groove and start a new path in the snow. It felt hard because the old groove was so deep. Her brain wanted to fall back into the stress path because it was the easiest way to go. But here's the amazing part. The more often you steer the sled onto the new path, the deeper that path becomes. Eventually, the new path becomes the easy one. This is why people who seem naturally lucky or happy often are just people who have spent a long time digging grooves of hope and excitement in their brains. They aren't lucky, they are well-tuned. Messages in the water. In the 1990s, a researcher in Japan named Dr. Masaru Emoto began to wonder if our thoughts could affect things outside of our own heads. He knew that the human body is mostly made of water, about 70%. He decided to see how water reacted to different kinds of energy. He put water into different bottles. On some bottles he wrote kind words like thank you and love. On others he wrote mean words like you make me sick or evil. He even played different kinds of music for the water. Then he froze the water and looked at the ice crystals under a powerful microscope. The results were stunning. The water that had been exposed to kind words and beautiful music formed gorgeous, complicated crystals that looked like perfect snowflakes. They were bright, symmetrical, and full of life. The water that had been exposed to mean words and angry thoughts didn't form crystals at all. It looked like a muddy, broken mess. It was gray and jagged. While some scientists argue about his methods, the message behind the experiment is a powerful way to look at manifestation. If thoughts can do that to a bottle of water, what are they doing to the water inside your own body? What are they doing to the water of the world around you? When you walk into a room feeling angry, people can often feel it before you say a word. You are broadcasting a frequency that is literally changing the space around you. You are like a tuning fork. If you hit a tuning fork that is set to the note of C, every other C tuning fork in the room will start to hum, even if you don't touch them. This is why like attracts like. If you are vibrating at a frequency of lack, feeling like you don't have enough, you will naturally vibrate with other things and people that feel like lack. You are humming a certain note, and the universe is humming it back to you. The observer effect. There is a very strange rule in physics called quantum entanglement and the observer effect. It sounds complicated, but it's actually like a cosmic game of hide and seek. Scientists found that tiny particles, the smallest bits of matter in the universe, behave differently when someone is watching them. When no one is looking, these particles act like waves. They are everywhere at once, just a cloud of possibilities. But the moment a person looks at them, they snap into a single spot and become a solid thing. This means that the act of looking at something actually changes what that thing is. Think about your life. If you look at your bank account and only see not enough, you are observing lack. According to this rule of physics, your observation helps keep that money in the state of not enough. You are locking it into that position with your mind. But if you can learn to look at your life and see possibility, you are changing the way those particles behave. You are letting them stay in that wave state where anything can happen. You are giving the universe room to surprise you. Nikola Tesla understood this long before most people did. He knew that his mind was a receiver. He believed that there was a core in the universe that held all the knowledge and strength we could ever need. He didn't think he was creating his inventions out of nothing. He thought he was tuning in to an idea that already existed. He once spent months in a place called Colorado Springs, building a giant tower that sent massive bolts of lightning into the sky. He was studying stationary waves. He found that if he sent energy into the earth at a certain frequency, it would travel all the way around the world and come back even stronger. Manifestation is a lot like that tower. You send out a frequency of what you want, not as a wish, but as a steady hum of energy. That energy travels out, hits the stationary waves of the universe, and eventually comes back to you. Tuning the dial today. So, how do you actually start changing your frequency? It's not about sitting on a mountain for 10 hours a day. It starts in the small moments, like Sarah on the train. The catch: the first step is just noticing where your dial is currently set. Are you listening to Scarcity AM or Success FM? You can't change the station if you don't realize you're listening to static. The pause: when you catch a thought that feels like Leo's, everything goes wrong for me, just stop. You don't have to fight the thought. Just say, "Oh, there's that old track in the snow." The shift find a bridge thought. If you feel broke, telling yourself, "I am a billionaire," might feel like a lie, and your brain will reject it. Instead, try, "I am learning how to attract more than I have today." That is a frequency that feels true and hopeful. The feeling, this is the most important part. Your brain is the radio, but your emotions are the electricity that powers it. A thought without a feeling is like a light bulb with no power. You have to feel the thing you want to attract. If you want a new job, don't just think about the desk. Think about the feeling of walking out of the building on a Friday afternoon, feeling proud of your work. That feeling is the high-frequency current Tesla was talking about. It's what makes the glass tube glow. As Sarah Jenkins stepped off the train and walked toward her office building, the rain was still falling. But she wasn't hunched over like Leo. She was looking at the way the city lights reflected in the puddles, gold and blue and white. She wasn't a conscious co-creator yet. She was still a woman with bills to pay, and a boss who sometimes stayed cranky. But she was starting to understand that the gray buildings weren't as solid as they looked. They were made of energy. Her brain was made of energy. And for the first time in 3 years, she felt like she held the remote control. The world doesn't change because we want it to. It changes because we change the signal we are sending into it. Your brain is a powerful tool, a gift that can literally reshape the world around you. It just takes a little bit of practice to learn how to steer the sled. Tonight, as you lay in bed, your brain will enter a state called alpha. This is a slower, more relaxed frequency. It is the perfect time to program your station for tomorrow. Don't think about your to-do list. Instead, imagine one thing going perfectly. Feel the relief of it. Feel the joy. You are a broadcast tower. You are a tuning fork. You are a scientist in your own life. The universe is listening, but it can only give you what you are tuned to receive. Take a deep breath. Feel the vibration of your own heart beating in your chest. That is energy. That is power. And it is entirely yours to direct. Chapter 3: Reprogramming the Subconscious Mind. 95% of your life is handled by a part of your mind that you cannot even see. If you think of your mind as a giant ship, your conscious thoughts are the captain standing on the deck. The captain gives the orders and decides where the ship should go. But the subconscious mind is the massive engine room, deep below the water. It is the part that actually turns the propellers and moves the heavy steel through the waves. The captain can shout "Go north" all day long, but if the engine room is set to go south, the ship is going south. This is why so many people feel like they are fighting against themselves. They want to be rich, but their engine room is programmed for struggle. They want to be happy, but their inner settings are tuned to worry. In the early 1920s, a man named Émile Coué discovered just how much power this hidden engine room really has. Coué was a pharmacist in a small town in France. He was a kind man with a white mustache and a gentle voice, but he noticed something that bothered him. He would give the exact same medicine to 2 different people with the same illness. One person would get better almost instantly, while the other would stay sick for weeks. He started to wonder if the medicine was doing all the work, or if something else was happening inside the patients. One day, a customer came in asking for a specific medicine that required a doctor's note. Coué didn't have the note, and he knew the medicine wasn't actually available yet. But he decided to try an experiment. He gave the man a simple bottle of colored sugar water. He looked the man in the eye and told him with total confidence that this was a new, powerful miracle cure that worked every single time. A few days later, the man returned. He was glowing with health. He told Coué it was the best medicine he had ever taken, and that his pains had vanished. Coué realized that the man's subconscious mind had taken the order from the pharmacist and carried it out. The sugar water did nothing, but the man's belief did everything. Coué eventually left his pharmacy and opened a free clinic. Thousands of people lined up outside his door in the town of Nancy, France. He didn't give them pills. Instead, he taught them how to talk to their own engine rooms. He became famous for a simple phrase that he made everyone repeat 20 times every morning and 20 times every night. Every day, in every way, I am getting better and better. Doctors at the time thought he was a fake. They called him a cult leader because they couldn't believe that words could heal a body. But Coué didn't care about the names they called him. He watched people who had been stuck in wheelchairs stand up and walk. He watched people with terrible skin diseases clear up in a matter of days. He realized that the subconscious mind is like a servant that never sleeps. It doesn't judge. It doesn't argue. It just says yes to whatever you tell it most often. If you tell it you are tired, it makes you feel heavy. If you tell it you are a failure, it looks for ways to mess up your day. But if you give it a new script, it will build a new life to match that script. The seed and the soil. To understand how to change your life, you have to look at your subconscious mind like a patch of dark, rich soil. This is the seed and the soil rule that many great teachers have talked about. The soil is very powerful, but it is also very blind. It does not care what kind of seed you plant. If you plant a watermelon seed, the soil will work day and night to give you a big, juicy watermelon. If you plant a poisonous nightshade seed, the soil will work just as hard to give you a deadly plant. The soil doesn't say, wait, don't plant that, it's bad for you. It just grows whatever is put into it. Your conscious mind, the part of you that is reading these words right now, is the gardener. You are the one holding the bag of seeds. Every thought you think is a seed. Most of us are clumsy gardeners. We walk through our day dropping seeds of worry, seeds of I can't afford that, and seeds of I'm not good enough into our soil. Then we act surprised when our lives are full of weeds. We blame the soil. We say, why is my life so hard? But we forget that we were the ones who planted the seeds of hard 6 months ago. Florence Scovel Shinn, a famous teacher from the early 1900s, used to say that the subconscious is like a record player. Back then, people used big wax discs to play music. If you scratched a deep groove into the disc, the needle would follow that groove every single time the record spun. You couldn't just wish the music would change. You had to make a new record with a new groove. Your habits and your deep beliefs are just old grooves in your mind. To change the song of your life, you have to stop trying to fix the old record and start carving a brand new one. This is why positive thinking often fails for people. They spend 5 minutes a day saying, I am rich, but they spend the other 16 hours of the day feeling poor and worrying about bills. They are trying to plant one tiny seed of wealth in a field full of tall, thick weeds of lack. The weeds will win every time because there are more of them. To really change, you have to clear the field and plant so many new seeds that the weeds don't have any room to grow. You have to feed the soil a new story until the soil actually believes it. Sarah's quiet midnight. In a small apartment in Chicago, Sarah Jenkins sat on the edge of her bed. It was 11:30 p.m. Usually, this was the time she spent scrolling through her phone. She would look at photos of people on vacation, or read news stories that made her feel anxious about the world. Her thumb would move rhythmically, flicking past images of lives she felt she would never have. Every time she saw a friend get a promotion or a stranger buy a beautiful house, a tiny voice in her head would whisper, "That's for them, Sarah. Not for you. You're just a coordinator. You're lucky to even have a cubicle." Tonight she put the phone face down on her nightstand. She remembered what she had read about the hypnagogic state, that blurry, sleepy time right before you drift off. This is the moment when the gate to the engine room is wide open. During the day, your conscious mind is like a strict guard at the door, blocking any new ideas that don't fit your old life. But when you get sleepy, the guard gets tired and goes to take a nap. This is the best time to sneak a new message into the subconscious. Sarah closed her eyes. She took a deep breath. She tried to imagine her ideal career day. At first, it was hard. Her mind kept jumping back to the unpaid electric bill on the kitchen table. It kept showing her the gray walls of her office. But she pushed those images away, like clearing a messy desk. She started small. She imagined the feeling of a heavy, solid door. A door with her name on it. Sarah Jenkins, Creative Director. She imagined walking into a room filled with sunlight. She didn't just see it, she tried to feel it. She felt the texture of a soft leather chair. She heard the sound of a high-end coffee machine whirring in the corner. Most importantly, she tried to feel the emotion of the scene. She didn't want to feel hopeful. She wanted to feel finished. She wanted to feel the calm, quiet confidence of someone who already has the job. For a second, a tiny flutter of excitement bubbled up in her chest. It was a strange feeling, like a spark of electricity. In that moment, she wasn't Sarah the tired mom with the stack of bills. She was Sarah the leader. She held on to that feeling as she felt herself sinking deeper into sleep. She replaced her habit of scrolling with the habit of creating. She was finally planting a seed in the dark, quiet soil of her mind, and for the first time in years, she felt like she was actually in charge of her own ship. The toolkit of the mind. If you want to reprogram your subconscious, you need the right tools. You can't just yell at the engine room, you have to use the language it understands. The subconscious doesn't speak in long, complicated sentences. It speaks in pictures, feelings, and repetition. It is like a small child who learns by watching what you do over and over again. Here are the most powerful tools to start using today. 1. Autosuggestion, the Coué method. The word autosuggestion just means giving a suggestion to yourself. The key is to keep it simple. If you try to tell your mind, I am going to earn $5,000 by next Tuesday through a series of successful business meetings, your conscious mind will laugh and say, no, you're not. This creates a conflict. To bypass the guard at the door, use a general phrase that the mind can't argue with. Coué's phrase, every day in every way, I am getting better and better, is perfect because it doesn't say you are perfect now. It says you are getting better. Your brain can accept that. You can use this for any area of your life. If you want more money, you can say, my income is increasing every single day. If you want better health, you can say, my body is getting stronger and more vibrant every hour. Say these things when you wake up and right before you sleep. This is when the soil is softest. 2. Visualization, the movie in your head. In 1996, a researcher named Dr. Blalato at the University of Chicago conducted a famous study on basketball players. He split the players into 3 groups to see how they could improve their free throw shooting. Group A practiced shooting free throws every day for an hour. Group B did nothing at all. Group C spent an hour every day just visualizing themselves making free throws. They didn't touch a ball. They just sat with their eyes closed and saw the ball going into the hoop. After 30 days, he tested them. Group B, as expected, didn't improve. Group A, the ones who practiced, improved by 24%. But here is the shock. Group C, the ones who only visualized, improved by 23%. They got almost the exact same results as the people who actually worked out. This happened because the brain cannot tell the difference between a real event and a vivid imagination. When you visualize, you are building the roads in your brain, called neural pathways, before you even take an action. 3. Vision boards, the visual script. Even famous people like Oprah Winfrey used this tool before they were superstars. A vision board is just a collection of pictures that represent the life you want. If you want a specific house, put a picture of that house on your wall. If you want to travel, put a map or a photo of a plane ticket there. The point isn't just to look at the pictures. The point is that your eyes see these images thousands of times a day without you even realizing it. Every time you walk past your board, your subconscious snaps a photo of it. Eventually, the subconscious begins to think, this must be my reality, and it starts looking for opportunities to make the pictures come true. It's like setting a destination in a GPS. Once the destination is set, the mind starts finding the turns to get you there. 4. The 21-day habit loop. Reprogramming takes time because you are fighting years of old habits. Science shows that it takes about 21 days of constant repetition to start forming a new pathway in the brain. Think of it like walking through a field of tall grass. The first time you walk across, you barely leave a mark. The grass just pops back up. But if you walk the exact same path every single day for 3 weeks, the grass stays down. A trail begins to form. After a few months, it's a clear dirt path. Eventually, it's a road. You must stay consistent. If you skip a few days, the grass starts to grow back and you have to start over. The power of the spoken word. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that your words are like magic wands. Most people use their wands to cast spells on themselves that they don't even like. They say things like, "I'm always late, I have such bad luck," or "I'll never get ahead." They don't realize that the subconscious is listening and taking notes. It thinks you are giving it orders. If you say, "I'm always late," the subconscious will make sure you hit every red light on the way to work. It is just trying to be helpful and make your words come true. You have to be very careful with the words, "I am." These are the two most powerful words in any language. Whatever you put after "I am" becomes your reality. When you say "I am tired," you are claiming tiredness. When you say "I am broke," you are claiming poverty. Instead, start claiming what you want. Even if it isn't true in the physical world yet, say it as if it is. Instead of saying "I'm sick," say "I am in the process of healing." Instead of saying "I'm lonely," say "I am attracting wonderful, loving people into my life." You are not lying, you are scripting. You are telling the engine room which way to turn the ship. The physical world is always a little bit behind your thoughts. It's like light from a star. By the time you see it, the star might have moved. Your current life is just the result of what you were thinking a few months ago. If you want a different life in a few months, you have to change your "I am" statements right now. Small wins and big shifts. Reprogramming isn't always about huge, explosive changes. Usually it happens in small, quiet ways. You might notice that you don't get as angry when someone cuts you off in traffic. You might notice that you start having hunches to call someone or go to a certain place. These are signs that your engine room is starting to follow the new orders. Sarah noticed her first small win a week after she started her nightly visualization. She was at the grocery store, and usually she would feel a pinch of fear when the cashier rang up the total. She would hold her breath, hoping her card wouldn't be declined. But this time she felt a strange sense of peace. She remembered the feeling of the creative director chair. She realized that a creative director wouldn't be scared of a $60 grocery bill. She breathed through it. The next day, a coworker who usually ignored her stopped by her desk to tell her she had done a great job on a report. It was a tiny thing, but for Sarah it was like a green light from the universe. It was proof that her vibration was changing. She wasn't just Sarah the worker bee anymore. She was starting to look like the person she saw in her mind at midnight. The soil was starting to sprout. You have the same power. Your mind is not a cage, it is a tool. You were not born to struggle or to just get by. You were born to create. But to create a new world, you must first become the master of your own inner world. You must stop being a victim of your old programming and start being the programmer. The engine room is waiting for your command. The soil is ready for your seeds. All you have to do is decide what kind of harvest you want to see. Tonight, before you go to sleep, don't pick up your phone. Don't think about your problems. Instead, close your eyes and step into the life you want. Feel the air, hear the sounds, and let the emotion of your success wash over you. Your subconscious is listening. Give it something wonderful to work on while you sleep. Take one small index card. Write down a single simple phrase that represents what you want most. It could be, "I am living in my dream home," or "I am happy, healthy, and wealthy." Place this card on your nightstand where you can see it right before you turn off the light. Read it aloud, then close your eyes and spend just 2 minutes feeling what it would be like if that sentence were already true. Do this every night for the next week. This is your first step in taking back the wheel of your ship. Chapter 4: 3 Pillars of Radical Gratitude. A billionaire investor stands on the floor of a panicked stock market, buying shares when everyone else is selling. A group of scientists in a California lab stares at brain scans, watching parts of the mind light up like a Christmas tree. An artist in a small New York apartment in 1925 tells a crying woman to go buy a pair of expensive silk gloves she cannot afford. At first glance, these people have nothing in common. The investor is looking for profit. The scientists are looking for data. The artist is looking for a way to help a friend survive. They are all using the exact same tool. They are tapping into a law as steady as gravity, though most people treat it like a polite suggestion. This tool is not just about saying thank you for a gift. It is a way of seeing the world that actually changes what the world looks like. This is the law of increase. It says that whatever you focus on with a heart of thanks will grow. If you focus on what is missing, the missing part grows. If you focus on what is there, the there part expands. The artist in that 1925 apartment was Florence Scovel Shinn. She was a woman who understood the mirror of reality better than almost anyone in her time. She lived in a world of high society, but her real work happened in her living room, where people from all walks of life came to her when they were at the end of their rope. One afternoon, a woman walked into Florence's home with a face full of shadows. She was a few days away from being kicked out of her home because she couldn't pay the rent. She had no job, no prospects, and very little hope left in her heart. The woman wanted to pray for money. She wanted Florence to help her ask the universe for help. But Florence did something that seemed almost cruel. She didn't tell the woman to ask for anything. Instead, she told the woman to start acting as if the problem was already solved. She told her that the universe doesn't respond to need. It responds to vibration. If the woman stayed in the vibration of being a victim who couldn't pay rent, the mirror of reality would simply keep showing her more reasons to feel like a victim. The power of the silk gloves. Florence asked the woman a strange question. She asked, "If you were a wealthy woman right now, what is one thing you would need?" The woman thought for a moment. She looked at her worn-out clothes and her tired hands. She said that she would need a new pair of gloves. In those days, a lady always wore nice gloves when she went out. It was a sign of status and care. Florence told her to go out and buy them. The woman was shocked. She barely had enough money for a few meals, let alone a luxury item. But Florence explained that this wasn't about the gloves. It was about future gratitude. By buying the gloves, the woman was telling her subconscious mind and the universe that she was already the kind of person who had a reason to wear them. She was planting a seed in the soil of her life. The woman took her last few dollars and bought the gloves. She didn't buy them with a feeling of fear. She bought them with a feeling of deep, radical thanks. She walked out of the store wearing them, feeling like a different person. She wasn't a beggar anymore. She was a woman prepared for a miracle. The very next day, a man she hadn't seen in years tracked her down. He owed her a debt from a long time ago, money she had completely forgotten about. The check he handed her was for more than enough to cover her rent and then some. This wasn't a magic trick. It was a shift in frequency. Florence taught that gratitude is not just a reaction to something good happening. It is the fertilizer that makes the good thing happen in the first place. This leads us to the first pillar of this practice, future gratitude. This is the act of giving thanks for something before it even shows up in your physical world. When you do this, you are tuning the radio dial to the station where that event already exists. The 3 pillars of the heart. To make this work in your own life, you have to understand that gratitude isn't a single feeling. It is a structure. Think of it like a stool with 3 legs. If one leg is missing, the whole thing falls over. Most people only use one leg, which is why they feel like they are constantly struggling to keep their balance. Past gratitude, the healing pillar. This is the act of looking back at your life, even the hard parts, and finding the value in them. It is easy to be thankful for a birthday cake or a promotion. It is much harder to be thankful for a breakup or a lost job. But when you find a way to say thank you for the lessons those moments taught you, you stop being a prisoner of your past. You clear out the weeds in your soil. You realize that everything that happened was part of the bridge of incidents, leading you to where you are now. Present gratitude, the alignment pillar. This is the most common form, but it is often done poorly. Present gratitude is about noticing the abundance that is already surrounding you right this second. It is the running water in your sink. It is the air in your lungs. It is the fact that you have eyes to read these words. When you practice this, you change your mirror of reality instantly. You cannot feel lack and gratitude at the same moment. They are like light and dark, they cannot occupy the same space. Future gratitude, the creation pillar. This is what Florence Scovel Shinn taught. It is the most powerful tool in the manifestation kit. It involves thanking the universe for your dream as if it is a finished fact. You don't say, "I hope I get that job." You say, "Thank you for this amazing career that fulfills me." This creates a magnetic pull. It tells your brain's filtering system, the reticular activating system, to start looking for evidence that this new reality is true. Sarah's kitchen shift. In Chicago, Sarah Jenkins sat at her kitchen table, far away from the glitz of 1920s New York. The city outside was gray and loud. On the table sat a bill with "Final Notice" stamped in bright red ink. Her daughter, Lily, was playing with a broken toy on the floor. Sarah felt a familiar weight in her chest. It was the feeling of not enough. Not enough money, not enough time, not enough energy. She remembered the concept of the gratitude rampage she had read about. It felt silly, almost insulting to be thankful when she was so close to losing everything. But she also knew that her current radio station, the one playing the "I Am Broke" song, wasn't helping her find a way out. She stood up and walked to the sink. As she began to wash the dishes, she started to speak quietly to herself. "Thank you for this warm water," she whispered. "Thank you for the soap that smells like lemons. Thank you that I have dishes to wash, because it means we had food to eat. Thank you for Lily's laughter. Thank you for the roof over our heads tonight." At first it felt fake. Her brain tried to argue with her. "But what about the rent?" her mind shouted. "What about the car repair?" Sarah didn't argue back. She just kept the rampage going. She moved from the dishes to the fridge. "Thank you for this milk. Thank you for the light that comes on when I open the door." After 5 minutes, something strange happened. The weight in her chest didn't disappear, but it shifted. It felt lighter. Her breathing slowed down. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she was in control of her own internal world, even if the external world was still messy. This was Sarah's first real win. She realized that she had been focusing on the empty spots in her life so much that she had become blind to the abundance that was already there. By changing her focus, she was preparing the soil of her mind for the seeds she wanted to plant later. She wasn't just being positive. She was changing her frequency from scarcity AM to abundance FM. The science of the thankful brain. While Florence Scovel Shinn used the language of the soul, modern science uses the language of biology to explain why this works. In 2003, 2 researchers named Dr. Robert Emmons and Dr. Michael McCullough conducted a famous study. They split people into 3 groups. One group wrote down things they were grateful for each week. The second group wrote down things that annoyed them. The third group wrote about neutral events. The results were not just nice, they were life-changing. The people in the gratitude group felt better about their lives and were more optimistic about the future. But the most surprising part was the physical change. They exercised more and had fewer visits to the doctor than those who focused on their problems. When you practice radical gratitude, your brain actually changes. It releases dopamine and serotonin, the feel-good chemicals. This makes you more creative and better at solving problems. When Sarah was in her kitchen, her brain was probably flooded with stress hormones like cortisol. By forcing herself into a state of thanks, she was literally flushing her system. A brain full of stress can only see walls. A brain full of gratitude can see doors. This is why billionaires like John Templeton used gratitude as a business strategy. Templeton was famous for being one of the greatest stock pickers of the 20th century. He made his fortune by buying stocks during the Great Depression when everyone else was terrified. He said that it is impossible to be successful if you are full of resentment. He believed that market gratitude, being thankful for the opportunities that come during a crisis, was the key to wealth. He saw the mirror of reality differently than the average investor. Where they saw a crash, he saw a clearance sale. The law of increase in action. The law of increase states that whatever is praised grows. This applies to everything from your bank account to your relationships. If you have $10 in your pocket and you complain that it's only $10, you are telling the universe that you don't value what you have. You are tuning into lack. But if you hold that $10 and feel genuine thanks for the fact that you have money to buy a coffee or a bus ticket, you are activating the law of increase. Think of it like a small plant. If you yell at the plant because it isn't a tree yet, you aren't helping it grow. You are just wasting energy. But if you give the plant water, sunlight, and praise in the form of care, it naturally expands. Your life is the same way. Your dreams are seeds. Gratitude is the sunlight. Florence Scovel Shinn once had a client who was looking for a job. The man was talented but bitter. He felt that the world owed him a living. Florence told him that as long as he felt resentment toward his former employers, no new doors would open. She told him to bless his old job and give thanks for the paycheck it provided, even if he hated the work. He didn't want to do it. He wanted to be angry. But he eventually gave in. He spent a week blessing everyone he had ever worked for. He thanked the universe for the skills he had learned. Within days, he received a phone call from a company he hadn't even applied to. They offered him a position that was better than anything he had imagined. By clearing the emotional clutter of resentment and replacing it with gratitude, he had made room for the new manifestation to arrive. Preparing for the rain. There is an old story about two farmers who were both praying for rain during a drought. Both men were desperate. Their crops were dying. But only one of those farmers went out and started preparing his fields to catch the water. He dug trenches and cleared the debris. The other farmer just sat on his porch and complained about the dust. Which one do you think truly believed the rain was coming? Gratitude is the act of digging those trenches. It is saying, I am so sure the rain is coming that I'm going to get ready for it right now. This is what the woman with the silk gloves did. She didn't wait for the money to arrive to feel like a lady. She felt like a lady first, and then the money had no choice but to show up to match her internal state. The mirror of reality cannot reflect something that isn't there. If you want the mirror to show you a life of abundance, you have to smile into it first. You have to provide the image. Most people stand in front of the mirror of their lives with a scowl on their faces, shouting, I'll smile when you show me some money. But the mirror doesn't work that way. It is a reflection, not a source. You are the source. The practice of the 3 pillars. To begin using these pillars today, you don't need a lot of time. You just need a shift in your attention. You can start exactly where Sarah did, at the kitchen sink or during your commute. For the past, take one event from your life that you usually think of as a failure. Find 3 things that event taught you. Say, thank you for that experience, because it gave me lesson 1, 2, and 3. Feel the charge of that memory change from heavy to light. For the present, perform a gratitude rampage for 2 minutes. Don't look for big things. Look for tiny things. The way the light hits a wall. The comfort of your shoes. The fact that you can breathe. Try to get your heart rate to change as you do this. For the future, identify one thing you want to manifest. Instead of wanting it, give thanks for it. Use the phrase, I am so happy and grateful now that your dream is a reality. Imagine what you would do if it were already here. Would you buy gloves? Would you book a flight? Would you simply walk with more confidence? When you do this, you are not just thinking positive. You are performing a mental rehearsal. You are building the neural pathways in your brain to recognize your new life. You are telling the seed that the soil is ready. The challenge. It is easy to be grateful when things are going well. Anyone can do that. The real power, the radical part of radical gratitude, comes when you can give thanks in the middle of the storm. It comes when you can look at a final notice bill and still find a reason to be thankful for the light in your fridge. This is the test of the conscious co-creator. Are you willing to trust the law even when you can't see the results yet? Are you willing to buy the gloves while your bank account is low? Look at your life right now. Not the life you want, but the life you have. If you were to stop wanting for just 60 seconds, what would you see? Is your home a place of lack, or is it a place filled with thousands of tiny miracles you have been ignoring? The universe is always listening to your broadcast. If your broadcast is, "I don't have enough," the universe says, "Correct, you don't have enough," and sends you more of that experience. But if your broadcast is, "Thank you for all this abundance," the universe says, "Correct, you are abundant," and opens the floodgates. What are you preparing for today? Are you digging trenches for the rain, or are you sitting on the porch complaining about the dust? The rain is already on its way. The question is, will you have a place to catch it when it falls? Chapter 5, The Day the Mirror Reflected Gold. In 1976, a man stood in a hallway at Goldwyn Studios in Los Angeles. He wasn't wearing a tuxedo or a fancy costume. He was wearing a tool belt. He was covered in a thin layer of sawdust, and his hands were rough from handling raw lumber. He was working on a door, focused entirely on the wood and the hinges. He wasn't there to audition for a movie. He wasn't there to meet a director. He had actually given up on the dream of being a movie star years ago. That man was Harrison Ford. At 33 years old, he had decided that the acting thing just wasn't working out. He had 2 kids to feed and a mortgage to pay. He tired of playing tiny roles in television shows that nobody remembered. He felt like he was constantly begging for scraps. So he made a choice. He decided to stop being a struggling actor and start being a great carpenter. He didn't realize it at the time, but by making that choice, he had changed his internal frequency. He stopped looking into the mirror of life and seeing a victim. Instead, he started seeing a craftsman. While he was finishing that door, a young director named George Lucas walked by. Lucas was in the middle of casting a new science fiction movie called Star Wars. He had already looked at hundreds of actors for the lead roles. He was stressed and tired. But when he saw the carpenter working in the hallway, he saw something the other actors didn't have. He saw a man who wasn't trying to impress anyone. He saw a man who was comfortable in his own skin. Lucas asked the carpenter if he would mind sitting in and reading some lines with the other actors just to help out. Ford agreed, but he didn't care about the outcome. He already had a job. He didn't need the role. Because he didn't need it, he was relaxed. He was funny. He was a bit cynical. He was quite literally the character of Han Solo in real life. By the end of the day, the carpenter wasn't a carpenter anymore. He was the star of the biggest movie franchise in history. This didn't happen because he hustled harder. It happened because he entered what we call the bridge of incidents. The mirror that doesn't lie. To understand how a carpenter becomes a space pirate overnight, you have to understand the mirror of reality. Imagine you are standing in front of a mirror in your bathroom. If you have a smudge of dirt on your forehead, you don't reach out and try to scrub the glass of the mirror to get it off. You know that wouldn't work. The mirror is just a reflection. To clean the smudge, you have to touch your own face. Most people spend their entire lives trying to scrub the mirror. They try to change their bank account by working 3 jobs they hate. They try to find love by going on 100 dates while feeling lonely and unworthy. They try to fix the reflection without ever touching the source. The law of attraction tells us that the physical world is the mirror. Your internal state, your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, is the person standing in front of the glass. The reflection has no choice but to follow you. If you smile, the reflection smiles. If you change who you are being on the inside, the world outside must eventually change to match you. Harrison Ford stopped being a needy actor. The mirror reflected back a world where he didn't have to beg for roles. Instead, the roles started looking for him. He shifted his vibration from lack to capability. When you stop focusing on what you don't have and start focusing on the value you can provide, the mirror reflects gold. This shift often leads to what looks like a series of lucky breaks or happy accidents. But these aren't accidents at all. They are steps on a bridge that the universe is building just for you. Walking the bridge of incidents. When you align your energy with what you want, the universe doesn't usually just drop a bag of money on your head while you are sitting on the couch. Instead, it creates a sequence of events. One thing leads to another, which leads to another until you arrive at your goal. This sequence is called the bridge of incidents. The strange thing about this bridge is that you can only see it clearly when you look backward. When you are walking on it, the events might seem random or even like mistakes. Think about a scientist named Alexander Fleming in 1928. He was a doctor at St. Mary's Hospital in London. He was trying to find a way to kill bacteria, but he wasn't having much luck. One day, he decided to go on a vacation. He was a bit messy, so he left a bunch of glass petri dishes sitting on his workbench. While he was gone, a window was left open. A bit of mold drifted in from the street and landed on one of his dishes. When Fleming came back, he saw that the mold had killed the bacteria around it. Now, if Fleming had been in a state of struggle or anger, he might have just thrown the dish away and complained about the messy lab. But he was in a state of preparation. He was looking for an answer. He saw the mistake as a miracle. That mold became penicillin, the first antibiotic, which has saved millions of lives. Was the open window an accident? Was the mold a coincidence? To the person who isn't tuned in, yes. But to Fleming, it was a crucial step on his bridge of incidents. The universe used a messy lab to deliver the answer he had been seeking. This happens in your life too. You might lose a job, only to have a conversation with a stranger at a coffee shop the next day that leads to your dream career. You might miss a flight, only to meet your future spouse in the airport lounge. These events are the sawdust and open windows of your life. They are the ways the mirror reflects your new internal state into the physical world. The law of preparation. Andrew Carnegie, one of the most successful men to ever live, used to say that the man who is prepared for his opportunity will always find it. Carnegie wasn't just talking about having a good resume. He was talking about a mental state. He believed that most people miss their bridge of incidents because they are too busy looking at the ground. They are so focused on their current problems, the bills, the stress, the lack, that they don't see the door opening right next to them. The law of preparation means acting as if the thing you want is already on its way. If you want a new car, you should clean out your garage today. If you want a new house, you should start packing your boxes. You aren't doing this because you are faking it. You are doing it because you are sending a signal to the mirror. You are saying, I am ready. I am no longer the person who lives in a cluttered house. I am the person who is moving. When you prepare, you are tuning your internal radio to a new station. You are clearing away the static of maybe and replacing it with the clarity of definitely. This is exactly what happened with Carl Jung, the famous psychologist. He coined the term synchronicity to describe these meaningful coincidences. One day, he was treating a patient who was very stuck in her own head. She was very logical and didn't believe in anything she couldn't see or touch. She was telling Jung about a dream she had where someone gave her a piece of jewelry shaped like a golden scarab beetle. At that exact moment, Jung heard a tapping on the window. He opened it, and a real beetle flew into the room. It was a scarabaeid beetle, the closest thing to a golden scarab you could find in that area. Jung caught the beetle and handed it to her. He said, "Here's your scarab." That accident broke the patient's logical defenses. It was a bridge of incident that allowed her to heal. The universe provided exactly what was needed at the exact moment it was needed, because the mirror of the session was ready for a shift. Learning to trust the reflection. One of the hardest parts of this process is waiting for the mirror to catch up. When you look in a physical mirror and move your hand, the reflection moves instantly. But in the physical world, there is often a time buffer. It takes time for the energy to turn into matter. Imagine you are planting a garden. You put the seed in the dirt. You water it. You give it sunlight. But if you go out the next morning and don't see a flower, you don't scream at the dirt. You don't dig up the seed to see if it's working. You know that under the surface, things are happening that you can't see yet. The same is true for your manifestations. Once you change your internal state, the bridge of incidents starts to build. But if you start complaining that nothing is happening, you are essentially digging up the seed. You are looking back into the mirror and saying, "See? I'm still broke, lonely, stuck." The mirror has no choice but to agree with you. It will reflect back more, nothing happening. To master the law of attraction, you must learn to look at your current reality and say, "This is just an old reflection. My new reality is already forming." This is what Harrison Ford did. He didn't focus on the fact that he was a failed actor. He focused on being a successful carpenter. He accepted his current reality without letting it define his future. When you stop fighting with the reflection starts to change on its own. The coffee shop nudge. Sarah Jenkins sat at a small, wobbly table in a coffee shop called The Daily Grind. The name felt a bit too honest for her liking. Outside, the Chicago wind was whipping through the streets, turning umbrellas inside out. Inside, the air smelled of burnt espresso and damp coats. Sarah had a small sketchbook open in front of her. For the last week, she had been trying the techniques she learned about the subconscious mind. Every night before bed, she spent 5 minutes imagining herself as a creative leader. She didn't think about her spreadsheets or her boss's angry emails. She thought about colors. She thought about the feeling of a paintbrush in her hand. She felt a little silly, but she noticed that her mood was different. She wasn't as heavy as she used to be. Usually, when Sarah was in public, she tried to make herself small. She would hunch her shoulders and stare at her phone. But today she felt a nudge. It was a quiet thought, almost like a whisper, "Draw the person across the room." She looked up. Across from her sat an older woman with a bright purple scarf and a very interesting hat. Sarah hesitated. Her old brain said, "Don't do it. You're not that good. People will think you're weird." But Sarah remembered the radio dial. She decided to tune out the static. She picked up her charcoal pencil and started to sketch. She got lost in the lines of the woman's face and the way the light hit the purple fabric. For 30 minutes, she wasn't a marketing coordinator with unpaid bills. She was an artist. "That's quite good," a voice said. Sarah jumped, nearly knocking over her lukewarm latte. A man was standing next to her table. He was wearing a professional-looking coat and carrying a leather portfolio. "Oh, thank you," Sarah said, her face turning red. "It's just a hobby." "You have a very clean style," the man said. He wasn't leaving. He was looking closely at her sketchbook. "I'm opening a new boutique downtown. It's a high-end clothing line, but we want the branding to feel hand-drawn and organic. Not like those stiff computer graphics everyone else uses." Sarah's heart started to pound. This felt like a Harrison Ford moment. "I'm actually looking for a freelance designer to do some initial concepts," the man continued. He pulled out a business card. "My name is Julian. If you have a portfolio, I'd love to see it. Or even just some more of these sketches." Sarah took the card. Her hands were shaking slightly. This man didn't know she worked in logistics. He didn't know about her final notice bills. He only saw the artist. I can definitely send you some things, Sarah said. As Julian walked away, Sarah looked back at her sketchbook. This was the bridge of incidents.